morning. This is the LiberalOasis radio show, a mere 3 days away until the Bush nightmare is officially done. It goes to show that we can survive almost anything. Better days are ahead, but lots of hard work to do. This is not going to be simple, easy, or quick to dig out of the hole that we're in. And after a hearty day of celebration on Tuesday, the work does not stop. There is no rest for the weary. But before that work begins, I should mention here in Northampton, you can see the swearing in live at the home of Drinking Liberally, Paradise City Tavern. They're going to be open up early, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. with a buffet lunch. I believe there's also going to be an after party at Mama Iguana's at 1 o'clock for those folks watching the swearing in at the Academy of Music. I think tickets are sold out for that already. But Paradise City Tavern will be open to all, and there will be an inaugural bash at the Paradise City Tavern for the regular Drinking Liberally festivities, which always happen Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m. How nicely they coincided with this moment of history. But even before then, the work has begun. Just this week, you've heard me talk about this on several shows because it really is the #1 legislative priority right now. The economic recovery package, what Obama calls the American Recovery and Reinvestment Plan. The House Democrats just released their draft of that. They made their package slightly bigger than what Obama was talking about, slightly less business tax cuts than Obama was talking about, arguably still more business tax cuts than are needed. But it is still a pretty healthy dose of public investment, $550 billion worth of public investment across the spectrum. It's not just environment and energy. It's not just education. It's not just healthcare. It is not just roads and bridges. It is not just broadband. It is covering the spectrum of all the infrastructure neglect that we have suffered over the past 8 years and then some. At the same time, it is not the final solution to those problems. It is merely a down payment. It is putting us on the path to economic recovery. But there will likely be more needed down the line. Congressman David Obey said this will probably not be the last bill that we do this year on the subject. There's some economic concerns about that. Joseph Stiglitz had said earlier, better to go too big than too small. You can scale it back later. You don't want to miss the mark early, so I don't want to be overly sanguine that we know this is exactly right. It is healthy to put additional pressure on Congress to beef it up because the Senate hasn't put out their bill yet. And once the Senate does their bill, it'll be slightly different than the House bill. They'll have to come together and negotiate a compromise. So continual pressure on them to jack it up. Even Obama himself has said that economists recommend a package as large as $1.3 trillion to really get the job done right. So there's room to grow. I think they expect it to grow. At the same time, it's important to keep pressuring them to pass this quickly because delay is an enemy. My folks at Campaign for America's Future at ourfuture.org have a letter-writing tool you can use to tell your congresspeople, pass this now. It's important to have that level of pressure on. But no, regardless of whether or not this is the absolute flawless bill, it's never going to be a flawless bill. The perfect is never always doable in a democracy. But it is no question that this is a fundamental righting of the ship. We are turning the ship around right before it goes off the brink. And to turn it practically 180 degrees within a few weeks of a new presidency is stunning, is transformational. It should be seen as such. And a concern that I have going forward is, do we, as foot soldiers in the liberal progressive movement, are we as focused as we can be on these key priorities? It is very easy to get distracted. We talk all the time about how George Bush and Carl Rove would want to distract the public. They want to distract you by talking about this or that. They want to do these little political moves that you don't pay attention to the more insidious stuff that they're doing. Well, don't think that you are so superior that you can't get distracted. Was it worth all your time talking about whether Roland Burris was going to be seated as senator or not? Did that have anything to do with the key priorities facing this nation? There are lots of little stories like that. Does it really matter that Ann Coulter is on a book tour spewing out her predictable hate? Is she even relevant to what's going on in Congress right now? I would submit to you that she is not. She is on a last gasp of pathetic tour that is not really affecting what's happening with this recovery package, not affecting what's going to happen with global warming, not affecting what's going to happen with healthcare. So we have to make sure that we are focused on what's important here. And if we understand that what is going to ensure a successful presidency, what is going to ensure that we bury conservatism for a generation, in the same way FDR's New Deal made it impossible for conservatism to breathe for decades. We're on the cusp of achieving such a goal if we stay focused, if we put the right kinds of pressure on our democratic institutions so they don't get watered down by the right. When FDR had a hiccup in the middle of the New Deal because, as Paul Krugman said, he pulled back. He thought I had to be fiscally responsible, pull back on spending, try to balance the budget in the short term. It was the wrong time to do that, and he ended up sparking a recession in the midst of his second term, which he corrected course, and things worked out okay in the end. A writer at ebonyjet.com said the same thing about Jimmy Carter. He had a big stimulus package in the works, but things started to look a little bit better, and so he cut that in half, and therefore it wasn't as effective as it needed to be, and he had economic problems that plagued his entire presidency. We need to guard against things like that. We need to put that exert that positive pressure. There's a propaganda documentary called IOUSA that was getting free airtime on CNN this past weekend, which is all about trying to scare you into thinking that we can't invest, that we have to be worried about balancing the budget in the short term, that we have to hack apart Social Security and Medicare if we're going to solve the debt crisis, when it is plagued with factual errors that were well chronicled by CEPR, an economic organization. Dean Baker, you may know, he is prominent there. If you go to CEPR.net, you can find out all the things that are wrong with that documentary if that has crossed your transom. All those kinds of things we have to guard against. So we need to know what our priorities are. It is public investment. It is solving the climate crisis. It is guaranteeing health care for all. It is making sure education is affordable. It is reforming the global economic framework. So we have trade policies and global investment policies that lift up workers worldwide, that alleviate global poverty and don't just feed the bottom lines of multinational corporations. These are the big things economically. I haven't even gotten into the foreign policy front. I haven't even gotten to the Middle East, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan. A new group just started up, Get Afghanistan Right, to make sure that that doesn't become a quagmire. These are the bigger priorities. And if we let ourselves get distracted by the outrage of the day that may have nothing to do with actual policy, we are not going to be doing our 100% to make sure that this administration gets off on the right foot, to make sure that we have a progressive legacy left the way, Ronald Reagan left a conservative legacy for all the positive things that are part of Bill Clinton's management. He had good managing skills, but he did not leave a progressive legacy to build upon afterwards because he had to play a lot of defense throughout his administration. That's not the kind of dynamic we want to have. It requires your engagement, my engagement. This does not happen on autopilot. So let us do our best, have a good time on Tuesday, and get right back to work on Wednesday. This is the Liberal Oasis radio show. After the break, we're going to be talking to one of the finest environmental thinkers, writers, and bloggers out there, David Roberts from Grist Magazine, grist.org, grist.org. Help us focus on what really matters on the environmental front going into this new year. This is the Liberal Oasis radio show. Back after the break.